The moon has come, the day is done, the night has covered up the sun. I have stood so often before you to pray, but I wonder, oh Lord, tell me, what did I do today? Did I remember the words of Al-Fatiha? Did I take time to thank you for all that I have? Did I call on you to guide my way? Tell me, what did I do today?
Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. I'm your host, Abdul Saeed, and welcome to another episode of Back to Basics. We have with us in the studio today our wonderful guest, Dr. Mamdouh Mohamed. Dr. Mamdouh, welcome.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, Dr. Mamdouh is a former professor at Johns Hopkins University. He is also the current director of Arrow for Consulting and Training, and he has worked extensively in over 7 universities across the globe, as well as traveled as far east as Indonesia and as far west as the United States, delivering lectures on education and for dawah purposes. Dr. Mamdouh, we've discussed several topics in this program before, and it has always come down to the issue of relevancy in modern times. So sort of like in medicine, things evolve over time. Methods and understandings of how the body works and how sicknesses and disease works has changed over time with the knowledge that we've acquired. Can we say the same thing about teaching methods? Can we say that teachers today require kind of an upgrade or to evolve in the way that they teach? And if so, would we say that their methods have become obsolete?
I would say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, I would say everything in the world changes. And if there is a change, that means the people who work in that specific area or this specific field, they should change. Otherwise, there will be something more advanced than others. The same thing applies to the field of education because it is very vibrant. Every day in every country, there are many schools and hundreds and thousands of teachers. They are thinking of new strategies. Nothing is called specific strategies. They change with the change of time, with the change of the context. So they need to change with. The problem is if we have some teachers who don't want to change. So everything changes around them, particularly the curricula and the textbooks and the nature of the students and the nature of classrooms and the nature of the world changes, yet still they don't want to change. This causes a big problem, and they look and they become in the place of obsolete things because they don't want to change. We've many examples seen in our lives, and when we inspect schools, one time I suggested the teacher was in trouble of space. He could not use the space well, so I suggest to him, why don't you write the date on the left? He said, no, I cannot do this. I said, that why not? He said, that I cannot change myself. I like it that way. I mean, such kind of thinking definitely is so dangerous for the students. The teacher doesn't want to move, and in this way he becomes very rigid and to the degree that you can say stubborn. And this doesn't work in education. The key word in education is the flexibility. Teachers should be very flexible to match the needs of the students, to respond to the needs of the students, which is something very important. Because the most important thing in education is the outcome, is the students, how much change happened in the students, how much they acquire, how many skills they improved, and how much knowledge they got, and how many concepts and understanding they got during the lesson. With teachers like that who don't move forward, who don't change, it becomes really a big problem. And this is the main difference between a class that has a flexible teacher, a teacher who always gets some sort of training and he changes himself. And people until now, in many places, people don't understand the meaning of the word training. Training equals change. You get training to change. So this should have been established in the minds of teachers all the time. We are going to send you, the principal is saying that we are going to send you to attend a training somewhere, or we're going to get some trainers to the school to train the teachers. This means that you are going to change. You attend this workshop to change.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're not going to change, so it would be a waste of your time and a waste of the efforts of the whole school.
Okay, so Barakallah Feekum, you're not basically saying that there's old methods and there's new methods, and the new methods are the only ones that work. You're saying that, beyond learning new methods and learning new teaching methodologies and so on, we also have to look at the very context of not only the students, but the country, the needs of the population and so on, for the teachers to adapt, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in general, though, we do know that teaching methods have improved over time. What are some of the modern teaching methods that can generally be applied to almost all schools? What would you say some of them are?
Of course, there are some methods, depends on the subject that you teach, and some of them are general. For example, one of the rules, one of the principles that good teachers adopt is engaging all students. The ability of the teacher to engage all students, not to engage some students at the expense of other students. If you can engage, today perhaps you engage 60, 70%. Next week we expect you to engage 80%. And the week after, by the end of the first month, you should have learned how to engage all students on their different levels. Not engaging them, all of them, on a specific higher level that only few students can do, but at least to engage them in the activities and the tasks of them. There's something essential in teaching method.
Okay, so then this is an example of how teachers can engage all their students, right?
Absolutely.
So let's say in the past, teachers were more general, and they basically addressed everybody the same way.
Absolutely,
So
and not only that, they were lecturing and spoon-feeding the students.
Yeah.
And
It wasn't very student-centered, basically.
Yes.
As we've mentioned in
Literally.
previous programs. Okay, so then obviously one of the older methodologies that is no longer relevant today, or no longer seen as relevant today, is, like you mentioned, that spoon-feeding, where the teacher comes in and just lectures the students.
Yeah.
Would you say that also applies, I know we're talking mainly about younger students, would you say that applies also in the university context, that even in university-level students, teachers should engage the students and make it more student-centered?
Absolutely. In the university, I remember that some of my professors, they used to make a schedule for all students. Next week, the ones who are going to present the lesson or the project are Mr. X and Mr. Y and Mr. Z. And so they come and they are the ones who are going to present. All of them are adult students, they are very good students, and the rest of the students are engaged with them by making comments, by adding something, by suggesting something, by questioning the students the presenters of the lesson. And in this way, the teacher is behind the screen. The teacher can go and leave the class for half an hour or for an hour, and the class runs very well because all of them have already learned how to manage the class.
Okay.
And in this way, you really prepare people for the future. Those people, those students are going to graduate and are going to work in corporations or organizations or in the government level.
And they're not going to have to be watched every 5 seconds.
They should be ready to fit in the new organization. They don't need another training, another period of time to get some extra training. No, they get the training while they are in the university and even long before that at school. If they are well trained and they got
a good education,
these skills, absolutely, this saves them a lot of time, and they would become very skillful in addressing other people, in making good presentations, and this is how countries improve.
So obviously then it's best, if we can, we start at a younger age, just so we instill those ideas and that type of training in children as young as grade school, right?
Absolutely, yes. And I would suggest that schools and countries should have plans for training the teachers consistently. And the key word here is consistently.
Okay.
The reason is, if you train teachers, let's say in the first 6 months, and then after that you don't train them for the second 6 months, it becomes a problem. Because we need to get them to the culture of training, because every time they are trained, they learn something new, and we want from them to integrate it in their classroom. And in this way, we update the level of the students after we have already succeeded to update the level of the teachers. So training is a key word in making the teachers flexible. And this is the culture that we want to spread in every school. If you have now 2 times training in the year, I think this is not enough.
Okay, so you're saying that 2 training sessions a year is the basic.
I am saying
you have to have at least that much.
I am saying the more the better.
Okay.
Depends on the budget, and the schools that have good name and reputation, they know the value of training, and that's why they make it 3 or 4 times, once a semester. If you have 4 semesters a year, if you have 3 semesters once a semester, that's good. And not for all teachers. Something is common for all teachers and something is specific. So the new teachers, we should deal with them as new teachers. Perhaps they need a little bit extra than the average teacher in the school.
Okay.
And one other benefit of training is that this guarantees that the teachers, when they grow older, which is the nature of any human being, that he becomes or she becomes rigid. And with this kind of training, they become flexible.
They become used to updating and changing and so on.
And who gets the benefit at the end? The students. And this is our key word, another key word in our talk.
That's very nice. Jazakumullah khairan. With that, let's go quickly to the break, but we'll be right back after this, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk.
I could agree that institutional racism does exist, and to be precise, we should define institutional racism, and that is hidden or non-apparent racism within an organization or an institution. I have witnessed it, maybe in half Saudi. My last name is Arab. So when I moved to the States back in 2002, after the incidents of 9/11, I did face some racism.
I think it can be what you do, but in the sense of without thinking. The things you do naturally without having to stop and think, that just come out.
Okay.
You know, this innate nature of you, and how you think, and the way you see things.
We can get your insights on the 2 different countries, inshallah, further on into this conversation. Mamdouh, if I can come to you, what's your thoughts on institutional racism, especially in the UK? Do you think it's really prevalent there?
The way we live, it's kind of a combination of 2 things: our language, and then what we believe in. So if we have got a language without believing in something, so it will be useless. So we have to get like both things going together.
I'm calling your name, oh Allah.
Subhanallah wa bihamdih, Subhanallah al-Azim, Subhanallah wa bihamdih, Subhanallah al-Azim.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and welcome back to the show, Back to Basics. We have with us in the studio our guest, Dr. Mamdouh Mohamed. Dr. Mamdouh, welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about training that we can give to our teachers so that we're always upgrading their abilities to teach the students correctly. And you were saying, Barakallahu feekum, that this is not something that should be done once a year, twice a year, but a minimum of 3 to 4 times a year, so that not only are they being constantly provided with newer methods and better ways to attract the attention and development of their students, but also so that we're also training our teachers, not just our students, as they get older and become naturally more rigid and more stubborn. We're training them to keep an open and flexible attitude with regards to improving their teaching methodology and methods, inshallah. Correct?
Yes. The training goes to the teacher,
Yeah.
and the fruits goes to the students.
Yes. Okay, barakallahu feekum. As usual, we like to connect any one of these topics to the origin of all teachers, which is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala entrusted his prophets and messengers alayhim salatu wasalam with being the teachers and the cultivators of all generations. And so we find in the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, don't we, that he addressed different people in different manners, and he didn't address everybody with the same one way of understanding the religion, or not necessarily understanding the religion, sorry. Let me rephrase that. He didn't address all segments of society in the same manner. So he customized his
This would
message.
fit very well when we talk about differentiation.
Yes.
Perhaps you meant that in the way that he taught people, yes, he used some training for them.
Okay.
I think one of the clearest examples, even not with adults, but even with young people, he used to do this. I remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ about training the young kids to do the salah.
Yeah.
For 3 years continuously, he advised the Muslims to train their kids at this particular specific age, from the age of 7 to 10, to teach them, to train them to do the prayer.
Yeah.
And you can observe this by your eye. And I wish that every parent would have this attitude of trying to see the impact of training on people. If you succeed to implement what the Prophet ﷺ did, you will find that most of adults, if not all the adults who pray now consistently, and this is due to what they have done when they were young. They have gone through this kind of training, intensive training, from the age of 7 to the age of 10. So training is very important, and you see the outcome even when you go old as 40 years, as old as 50 years, 70 years, you never skip the salah. Why? Because you get adequate training. So training the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as in every profession in the world, training is essential for people to acquire the skill. Once you get the skill, it becomes very difficult to leave it unless you don't use it. You know the golden rule that says that use it or lose it. Yes. Languages, for example. If you always use a foreign language, right, you will never forget it.
Inshallah.
If you leave it for a few months, you will forget it because you don't practice it. So it's very important, and Islam, of course, had taught this in many other areas, and it's part of the human nature.
Yeah.
They need training, particularly in societies that we live now, because there is a lot of quick changes that happen around us, and that's why we need, when we get even the training, we need to get a level of perfection.
Yes.
Not just a training, because if it doesn't reach a level of perfection, it will decrease day after day, day after day. This is something that we don't want to.
Okay, barakallahu feekum. So then we're seeing that the Prophet ﷺ, in fact, did teach us, did apply different teaching methods with the same, obviously with the same, if you want to connect it to school, with the same curriculum. The curriculum of Islam obviously didn't change from person to person, but the methodology in which he taught the people differed from a child, different from a Bedouin, differed from a grown man, and so on.
Yeah. If you are referring to curriculum of Islam, it did change. Because the issue of fiqh, for example, now we are talking about issues in fiqh that perhaps they were not touched before. Because there are new events that are happening in the world, and that's why we need to dig deep and deep to find which ayat and which hadith would adapt themselves.
Okay, let me rephrase that then.
Yes, please.
Just as when we're teaching, let's say, the English language, or let's even say further than that, let's say we're teaching history, because history, we learn more things about history, and we change our understanding of it based on new facts that come into play. The essentials don't necessarily change. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thawabit and mutaghayyirat. We have thawabit, we don't change, but we change the method. For example, Aqidah itself. as the dogmas and the rules of Aqidah, the principles of Aqidah don't change. But the way to teach them changed. If you teach a lesson in Aqidah, right, it's definitely, it will be different from the way another teacher or another scholar teaches it. The content is the same, yet the approaches to the content and the way you teach it is different depending on your own personal experience and your training that you got at your school.
And the focus on what to teach and what to not necessarily omit, but what to focus less on.
Yeah.
We see that in the history of Islamic scholarship, where scholars focused on key points of Aqidah because there was a confusion and there was a misunderstanding of those points at those times, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're saying teaching in general follows that same structure, that
Yes.
you look at what to focus on,
Yes.
what the people need, and as long as the base and the fundamentals are the same, the curriculum doesn't have to necessarily follow itself 100%.
Something about teaching here is good. One thing about teaching now, it may sound strange to people nowadays. They say that, trainers say that, don't teach in the same way that you've been taught through. Somebody taught me, I love the teacher, my teacher, but it's not necessarily that I use the same method.
Even if it worked for you, it might not work
Even
for your
if it worked,
students or your
absolutely,
children.
because the new generations now, you talk to them, but they are more into Google, they are more into games, they are more into,
And they're almost more aware of what's around them because we're in a more global society. They have their phones, they can instantly search things up. So it's not necessarily that they're more knowledgeable, but they think they are because they can access information much easier.
they have more access
Access to
and easy
information.
access to information.
Whether it's right or wrong,
And that's, but let's say it's right. But why would you spend a lot of time memorizing knowledge that is not essential in your life? For Muslims, what is essential is the Quran and the Sunnah. The Quran is very important because you use it in every day. You recite the Quran, and so you have to memorize. Whereas in other subjects, yes, you don't need to memorize a list of the name of the cities of in a country like Brazil or Argentina, right?
And even when we were younger and we did memorize geography, we memorized
We
history,
did,
we forgot a lot about it because we didn't apply it necessarily in our day-to-day lives.
Now we are investigating this. We are re-evaluating this. Why would I use part of my time and part of my memory in things I rarely use? Whenever I need that, right? Let's say that I'm planning to go to Brazil, to visit Brazil. I would go to the internet. I would stay with the internet for half an hour or a few minutes, and I would get all the information that I need.
So the transition is from memorizing the facts to memorizing where to get the facts. If you
Yes. The skill, I would say
skill.
that memorizing, acquiring the skills of how to get the
knowledge,
correct and authentic facts and information. And whenever I need it, I would use it.
Because like you mentioned previously, Barakallahu Feekum, that if somebody memorizes even a language, if they don't apply it, they'll forget it. If you memorize Quran and you don't review it, you'll forget it.
Absolutely.
So imagine memorizing something like geography or history and then not applying it, you're going to forget it with time. You might remember some key points here and there, but certainly you're not going to remember the main details.
I think curriculum nowadays require another look and another look and another look.
But I think a lot of exams are still based around this older understanding.
Absolutely.
Where you have to just, 1 or 2 days before the exam, cram everything into your brain, get the results on the paper when you do the exam, and then a couple of weeks later forget it. So then what's the benefit?
What is the benefit? Or can we benefit from the time in a different
way?
In a different way? Yes, we can. And this is something that really people who are responsible for curriculum, and part of them are teachers. And one of the things that we used to ignore is involving the parents and involving the students in the curriculum. And
to improve the curriculum.
To improve the curriculum, to enrich the curriculum.
Well, I think even teachers, to an extent, are not really included in the curriculum. I think you were mentioning before that it's with older generations especially, it's harder to get them to modify or to improve themselves because they almost have a stubbornness. Like the teacher you mentioned who he writes it on the left side, or he writes it on the right side and he can't put it on the left side because he's like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So how do we get these people who are in charge of the curriculum to really change their ways?
This takes us to the title of or the theme of this discussion, which is training. If teachers get training, that they should be involved in enriching the curriculum, and it's a must, by the way. It's a must. If teachers are not involved, who should be involved? Teachers,
parents, even students to an extent.
And students, of course.
And so this all falls on the schools and those who, and the education ministries and so on.
Absolutely. Yes, you're right.
Okay.
Yes.
We're just about out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close this episode, inshallah?
I would...
Any advice you want to give to the schools out there?
Some of the people who are in charge in some countries in this world, they always say that education. And I repeat that by using different words because I'm involved in teaching. So I would say training. These are key words, although it is one word only. This is one word that is very essential in improving the quality of the people around us.
Jazakumullah khairan. And with that note, we'd like to end the episode. First, we'd like to thank our guest, Dr. Mamdouh. Thank you very much for coming here today. And thank you for watching. Inshallah, till next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Oh, the moon has come, the day is done, the night has covered up the sun. I have stood so often before you to pray, but I wonder, Allah, tell me, what did I do today? Did I remember the words of Al-Fatiha? Did I take time to thank you for all that I have? Did I call on you to guide my way? Tell me, what did I do today? I have whispered to you as I made ruku, Subhana Rabbi Aladi. But was my faith bright or grey? Oh Allah, tell me, what did I do today?